Hi guys, welcome to my channel. So today I'm going to be sharing a very personal story with you guys. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want you guys to know that children belong at home. Just because a child is in state's care doesn't mean that they are properly being cared for or looked after. Things still go wrong in state's care. It happens every day. So what you're looking at is part of my case file, and it's a document from the courts. It's got my name. I'm going to stay off the case number because, privacy reasons. It has that I was in care of Maplewood Group Home. And if we go over here to this column, it has some court orders that were handed down. Number 1, me and my mother were to continue in counseling. Number 2, my mother was ordered to sign over all of my medical records to the cabinet. Number 3, I was to remain at Maplewood Children's Home. Number 4, my mother was ordered to pay $10 per day for my stay at Maplewood Children's Home. So I'm pretty sure, guys, that the Wells are being charged for the care of the boys while in state's care. And this was 30 years ago. It was $10 a day. And the price is different at each different place. Meaning one group home might be $10 a day and another group home might be $15 a day. And the last one on here we see, my mother was ordered to have drug evaluation. This is what an actual child abuse report looks like. This is from my juvenile file. As you can see, it has the date of the report. It has my name and my birth date above my name. It has my age. Turns out I was 10 years old, not 11. Of course, I'm a female. It has the incident listed as physical injury. It says there may be a stepfather in the home. I'm not going to read the report to you guys because it's a little bit personal. But pretty much there were some allegations of abuse in my home. And the school had tried to call the house the next day because I didn't show up at school. And they were told by the phone company that the phone was off the hook, which subsequently sent CPS to the house and I was removed from the home. Now, the story I'm getting ready to share with you all happened at Maplewood. And it had to have happened in late 1989 or early 1990. Okay, I'm no artist, but here's my drawing of the layout of Maplewood, so you guys have a pretty good idea of how a group home operates. And it's pretty much a boys' dorm, a girls' dorm, a big kitchen, a big cafeteria with lots of tables. We had a big day room with lots of big comfy couches to sit on, a big TV in there. And the nursery was right here. There was only one door to get in the nursery, from what I remember. I'm pretty sure. So the first time I stayed at Maplewood, I actually was there more than once. But the first time I stayed there, I was 10 years old, and my room was actually the last room on the left when you went down the hall. So I would sneak out of my room at night. I would literally hear these babies all the way down the hall. I would sneak out and run down the hall, and night staff would sit right here at night, right there at a table. And I would look down the hall and make sure they couldn't see me, make sure, they weren't there. I would wait for them to get up and do something, go in the kitchen or something, and I would run in the nursery. So that's what happened this night in the story you're getting ready to hear. And also, real quick, here is Maplewood on Google Earth. So here is the front door, parking lot, front door, kitchen. There were offices right here upstairs. This is the only part of the building that had an upstairs where the offices were. But first floor, kitchen, dining room, day room. This was the girls' dorm. My room was right here, the story you're getting ready to hear. This is the hallway. I would go out the girls' dorm, down the hall, and into the nursery, which was right here, is the nursery. This is the boys' dorm. So today I want to talk to you a little bit about what it's like to be a little kid and be taken out of the home and put in state's care. So the first thing I guess you need to know is usually the first night a child is taken, they are put into what's called an emergency shelter for children, or a drop-in center. Now sometimes they go straight to a group home or a foster care if there's an opening, but most of the time they go straight to an emergency shelter for children. So the story I'm getting ready to tell you actually happened at a place called Maplewood, and it is a group home / drop-in center for children. So what's it like? Well, the first time I went to Maplewood, I was 10 years old. It's very scary, it's very surreal, and traumatizing, all rolled into one. You have to go with strangers, so you're very apprehensive to begin with. You don't know where you're going, and you don't know who's going to be there when you get there. So the first thing they do when they get you to wherever they're taking you to is they do their intake, or should I say your intake. And every place has a different intake process. Usually the first thing they do is they make you take a bath. And yes, they make you use the lice shampoo. Doesn't matter how old you are, you still have to use the lice shampoo. At least you did when I was a kid. I had long dark hair, so they definitely made me use it. After that, after you get your bath and everything, they make sure, you get your belly full and all that, and they make sure you're comfortable. And they set you down, and it takes a couple hours to go through intake questions. They ask you 1,001 questions. What your home life is like, if you're sexually active, if you take drugs, if your parents hit you, if you've been sexually abused, if you're allergic to anything. I mean, it's just 1,000 questions. And when you're a little kid, most of the time you don't even know, the question. You can't even wrap your mind around the question. Asking a 9-year-old if they're sexually active is embarrassing for both the kid and the adult. Let's just put it that way. So after your intake is done, they take you and show you your quarters or your room where you'll be staying. Now at Maplewood, there's 2 beds in each room with a little desk next to each bed with a light and a closet in front of each bed. The rooms are comfy. They're usually carpeted, and it's usually set up to feel as close to home as they can get. They try to make it pretty comfortable for kids. And most of the staff are really, really nice. They're really loving, really attentive. You can tell they really care, very affectionate. And you can tell that they're in that line of work because they care about kids and they want to help kids. And they consider it their life, working with these kids. And each place usually has at least one really special person that works there that you'll get attached to pretty easily. Everybody has their favorite staff parent, house parent, shall I say. So in this place, this group home, there's usually about 2 or 3 staff, house parents, taking care of anywhere from 25 to 30 kids at once. Yes, we went to public school from the group home. The bus would come and get us and take us to school and drop us off. They had a lot of games there to play, like board games, ping pong, shuffleboard, things like that. I don't remember video games, but I do remember them having a big TV with lots of VHS movies to watch. Usually every place has a little room off to the side to take kids when they get angry or they're having a tough day. It's usually called the quiet room. And you usually go in the quiet room when you're wanting to vent, maybe cry or scream a little because things aren't going good with mom and dad, whatever, at home. But being in a group home, you're always doing something. You're never bored because usually there's always something to do. You have chores. If you don't do your chores, they take away TV time or they make you go to your room. Now, as I got older, and I'll tell you all some stories about that later, when I got put in residential for girls, they're a lot stricter. Also, Oneida Children's Home for kids is very, very strict. It's one of the strictest places I was ever at. So, back to the group home. Also in the group home, usually there's snacks and stuff in the cafeteria room where we eat. And you can't really go get in the fridge anytime you want, but you can go in the cafeteria and grab a snack. They usually have milks in there and juices and things like that, and bags of chips and whatnot. And we always had snack time too. And I have to say, from what I remember, the food was pretty good. I do remember that they had their own cook, and I remember she was a sweetheart, the lady that worked in the kitchen who cooked our food. I really, really liked her. She was like a grandma to us kids. Also, I got to help out with the little kids quite a bit, and I really enjoyed that, playing with the little ones and helping them get dressed in the morning and get ready for daycare before I had to run off to school. I remember those days. So, trying to think of anything I'm leaving out. Oh, yeah. So, like I was saying before, you always have something to do at the group home. You're never bored. There's always somebody to play with or something to do. But at nighttime, when you're laying in your bed, is when you really, really miss home. And that's when it really sinks in that you're not at home and where you are and things like that. And that's when you really, really, you want your mom or your dad or whoever is at home missing you. Nighttime's the toughest. And guys, the reason I'm sharing these stories with you all, because this is not easy to do, share this part of my life. But here's the deal. I feel like we're a nation failing our kids. And trust me, I know how hard it is to be a parent these days. My kid is me all the way. And I keep that in mind when he's acting like a little butthead. I try to remember what I was like at 14, 15 years old. And that really, really helps me in so many ways because I know he's going to outgrow it. I know he's going to grow into himself and he's going to be just fine. But the thing is, you got to have patience. You got to have patience, and sometimes you just got to step back, take a breath, and regroup and just go at it. I know it's hard. Trust me, I know. I mean, my son gets me so angry sometimes. I just got to walk away from him and take a time out and calm down and think of a different way to approach him to where we're not butting heads so much. Another thing I want to really stress is about 20 years ago, some really supposedly smart scientists got together and they thought it would be a good idea, or not scientists, counselors, my bad, counselors, like, school counselors and mental counselors. They thought it would be a good idea to tell everyone to do this. Tell your children that they're special and they can do anything in this life. They can accomplish anything. Well, guess what? That's a lie. I had to learn that the hard way. I tell my son all the time, he is special, but he's special to God and me, his family, and those that depend on him and those that he depends on in his daily life. His friends, those that are close to him. That's the only people you're ever going to be special to. Mainly God. We are all special to God in our own unique way. Another thing, you cannot go out here and do whatever you want to do. What you can do, you have to work hard at. You have to practice and learn how to do things. You just can't go out here and do them. It takes time, effort to learn how to do something and master something. And you have to work hard at it. So whatever counselor whose idea it was to tell all these kids that they're special and they can do anything, they're setting them up for failure. Also, guys, back then, when I was in these places, like group homes, drop-in shelters, and the like, we were allowed to smoke. If we had a cigarette habit, that was completely acceptable. The way it worked was your parents or someone had to buy your cigarettes and bring them to the group home or wherever it was that you were staying, and staff would keep them locked up. And every hour, once an hour, at most places it was once an hour. Some places it was once every 2 or 3 hours. But most of the time, at least once an hour, they would call cigarette break. And you would go to the door, the outside door, and they would hand you one of your cigarettes and light it for you. And you went out on the porch and smoked it, and they had an ashtray out there and everything. So that's a perfect example of the whole point I'm trying to make. CPS should be a last option for any child. Children belong at home. The state, the government does not have a never-ending supply of upstanding citizens to work these places. Yes, there are good people that work in these places, but there's also bad people that prey upon these places as well. It's important to know that. Perfect example, a parent that smokes pot. Their child should not be taken out of the home. That's ridiculous. But it happens. And it takes up a lot of resources for other kids that are really out there being seriously abused because the spot is being taken up, with another family over issues of marijuana. I mean, how silly is that? So, that's just one example of how our system is completely flawed. So a big reason of why I'm sharing my story with you guys is because the system is flawed, and it's important that people know that CPS should be a last resort for any child. Children belong at home with their family. If you love your child, no one's going to care for them and protect them the way that you can, the way that you will. And the fact that back then, they let us little kids smoke cigarettes if we wanted to is a perfect example of how they didn't care about our health. Okay, so I was able to tell the story about what happened at Maplewood when I was 10 years old. I was able to tell the story the other day when I was driving pretty well without getting too upset and teary-eyed and all that. It's not a story I've told too many times, but I have told it throughout the years to a couple different people. And I usually get the same reply every time, which is shock. And then a lot of questions like, have I ever told, somebody official about the story that I remember? And no, I really haven't. I've always wondered what happened to the little kid involved. So, if by some chance this story sounds familiar to anyone out there, I would love to hear your end of it. Hi, YouTube world. Talk about in your face, right? I'm driving. So, yeah, I'm a little goofy sometimes. My son, he's like, Mom, don't embarrass me. You're embarrassing me. Stop it. But, okay, so I've been trying to make a video for days about my experience. I don't tell too many people this, but I've always wanted to tell my story. I've always wanted to write my story. I'm still thinking about sitting down and writing it. But I was in state's custody off and on from the age of 9 to 17 years old. I was emancipated when I was 17, and I was declared a legal adult, and I went on my happy little self and put myself in college and got a degree, got a career, and did everything right, and somehow my life still became a mess. That's another story. But what I would like to share with you guys right now is a story about a place called Maplewood. Now, I have some documents I want to show you guys concerning this. But I have to, I have to mark out my last name, and I have to mark out addresses and other names on the documents. So I've been working on that so I can show you all what an actual child abuse report looks like. I have my child abuse reports. I can show that to you guys. But the story I want to share with you right now, it happened when I was 11 years old. I had already been taken out of the home previous to this incident, and I was sent back home with my mom, and we were doing pretty good. There was an incident at school where I had showed up at school with some bruises on my face. And when the teacher asked where I got the bruises, I told the teacher that my mom punched me. Well, the next day I hadn't showed up at class. I didn't show up at school. And the school was actually told by the telephone company that our phone was off the hook. Back then, they could actually do that. I think they can still do that now with a landline. If they could tell whether you're on the phone talking to somebody or whether it's just off the hook. And my mom had a habit, when she didn't want to be bothered, she would just take the phone off the hook. So CPS showed back up at the house, and they removed me, and they put me in a group home called Maplewood. I was 11 years old. I was at Maplewood for quite a lengthy time. I'd say about 8 or 9 months. I went to public school from there. It was in the same county that I lived, that me and my mom were from. So I lucked out and actually got a placement at a group home in the same county where me and my mom were from. So my mom could visit me easily, and I was still able really, just to see my family because I was close to my family. They got visitation. My grandparents would come and see me. But Maplewood, let's get back to Maplewood. So I was in Maplewood. I was 11 years old, and they had a lot of kids there. And I've drawn a picture for you guys to show you the layout of this place, where the kids slept, where the babies slept, where the nursery was. They had babies there. They had toddlers there. They had kids all the way up to about 13, 14, 15 there at this group home. So, and I actually think that Maplewood is not just a group home. It's also considered a drop-in shelter for homeless kids, for troubled kids. So, I love to play with the babies and help take care of the babies. I would always, want to feed them and rock them and play with them. And, I was that kind of girl. I loved playing with the little kids. I liked making them happy and showing them attention and help getting them dressed and help bathing them. Now, at this group home that I was in, we had what's called house parents. And the house parents, I would say there were anywhere from about 3 to 4 house parents on shift, each shift, taking care of approximately, 25, 30 kids. So the house parents would come in and the shift would change every morning, and we would have, different house parents in the evening than we would have in the daytime. We would have a night shift and a day shift house parent. So, after a while, I started getting called out and reprimanded for going in the nursery at night and coddling the babies. I was told that they needed to cry themselves to sleep, that I was not to go in the nursery after bedtime and mess with the babies. But they cried all night and I couldn't stand it. So I would sneak in the nursery and hold them and rock them and play with them. And I would get caught all the time. And, that's the truth of it. So one night I was in my bed. I had already been called out for being in the nursery once, and I was laying there and I couldn't sleep. I had already been told that night to go back to my room and go to bed at least once. I remember that. And this baby kept screaming his head off. I mean, there's a difference between a baby's cry when a baby just needs to be changed or is hungry. This cry I heard that night was an excruciating, painful cry, and I couldn't stand it no more. So I got up, I snuck down the hall, I snuck into the nursery, and I remember when I opened the door, the first thing I laid eyes on was this little black boy. He was about, I'd say, 13, 14 months old. He was crawling. He was at the crawling stage, trying to stand up and learning to walk stage. And he was in his crib, and he was standing there holding onto his crib, jumping up and down, screaming, crying, and had blood all over him. I ran over to him, picked him up, and that's when I realized that he had been bitten all over. And that's when I looked down and seen the other baby in his crib. What happened was, these cribs were so close together, another baby climbed in his crib and bit him all up and down his arms and legs. And when I say bit him, I mean there was chunks missing out of this child. Still to this day, I wonder what happened to that little boy. I picked him up. I ran down the hall with him. I got night staff's attention. They called an ambulance. And it was the EMTs that finally took that little boy out of my arms. I would not let him go. At that point, he was already attached to me anyway. I was like a big sister to him. I was a constant thing in his life. I didn't leave and go home. I was there every day. So he knew me well. He did not want to let go of me, and I did not want to let go of him. But seeing the circumstances, they told me I was not allowed to go to the hospital with him. So they took that little boy to the hospital, and he never came back to Maplewood. I never found out what happened to him. I asked several times, and all they would tell me was that he was fine and that he would be okay. That's all they ever would tell me. Now, the baby that did it, I want to say, now, this might not be right because it's been so long ago. This is something that happened, I'm 43. So this happened when I was 11. So this was over 30 years ago, guys. So,
the babies that were there that I can remember, they had a set of twins, a little boy and a little girl that were little, around the same age as that little boy. And I want to say it was one of the twins that gotten in his crib and did this to him, but I'm not quite sure because my memory just, is kind of foggy on that. But that's what happened, and that's a true story. And I wanna reiterate that there are good people in these group homes that care about kids. They're there to help kids. They would never let a baby lay there and scream its head off all night. But back then, these night shift people that worked at this group home, that's what they did. They did not care. They let the babies cry all night, and it was tough. It was really tough. Now, from my recollection, the night shift person that was working that night did get fired over that. There would have to be some kind of paper trail about this incident. I'm assuming that this child that this happened to has still got the scars up and down his arms. And I would love to meet that person today. I would love to, as an adult, run into that baby and know that, that's that person standing in front of me, that's who that baby was, and they're okay. Because in my mind as a little kid, the last time I seen them, they were screaming, crying, missing parts of their arm, getting sent off in an ambulance. So that's just one story I have for you all. Things that I witnessed or things that happened to me when I was in state's custody. Guys, there's so many homeless people out here, it's ridiculous. I give what I can. I do. But daggone, there's a lot of them, and it's cold out here. And I do believe the road is getting a little slick. It's raining. But that's what happened. I stayed at Maplewood for a while after that. Eventually, I was either sent to another placement or sent back home. I have my juvenile file. I'm going to show it to you guys later, and you'll see what I'm talking about. It's very thick file. It's a very thick file. I'm going to sit down and try to put all the paperwork in order by year or by date, and try to go through my file and, write down where I was, when I was there, what year I was there. Just a little background info real quick. I'm talking about places in Kentucky like Holly Hill, Mash, Homeward Bound, Maplewood, Rivendell, Ramey East Step, which is a boys' home. But there's a Ramey East Step for girls that I was in years ago. Oneida is in Barberville, and I was there when I was 9 years old. And it's a Baptist-run group home for children. Oneida is, and they're very strict. You have to wear dresses if you're a girl. It's very, I'd say it's more Pentecostal based than Baptist, but they're listed as Baptist. But I grew up Pentecostal, and they have a lot of the Pentecostal ways at Oneida. When we get in trouble at Oneida, we have to write sentences or bend over and take a licking. Yeah, that's how strict they were. You got up every morning, put your church clothes on, put your skirt on or your dress on. You went to church every day. Then we went to school. Then we worked. We worked our butts off. Yard work, lots of it. I'm talking old-fashioned push mowers that you push them and they turn. I'm not talking about gas-powered mowers. They put us kids to work at Oneida. I remember. I might have been little, but I remember. So yeah, I was there. The only Oneida I know is in Barberville, Kentucky, and I ran away from there. I was 9 years old. Matter of fact, the gentleman who picked me up when I ran away had one leg. And I got in the car with him. And thankfully, he was a good man, and he took me straight to the police station. And the police called my family, and I told my family, I'm not going back to that Oneida place. I don't care if y'all put me in juvenile detention, I'm not going back there. And I can't remember if they made me go back. It's been so long ago, but it seems like I didn't have to go back. And I do remember them letting me walk away from Oneida. They let me leave. Like, I was like, I'm gonna run away. And they said, them doors are locked to keep people out, not to keep people in. If you want to leave, there's the door. And I took off walking down the street, 9 years old. True story. Kid you not. I remember that. Yep. I actually have some family in Corbin. And I think what happened back then was the police called my aunt in Corbin, and she came and got me, and I went home with my family in Corbin from Oneida. I think that's what happened. Like I said, I've got my file. I haven't sat down and went through all of it. It's a very extensive file, and it brings back a lot of memories that I'm not, really trying to remember. It's like something I'm procrastinating on, and I dread thinking about some of these things, because being in juvenile detention, being in group homes, foster homes, drop-in centers like MASH is a drop-in center for homeless teens. It's not a fun place to be. MASH was one of my favorite places, though. MASH was a pretty cool place. But I have a story about that place, too. Yeah, not even going to get into that right now, but yeah, that's my story from Maplewood. Maplewood is actually in Boone County, Kentucky, near Florence, just outside of Florence, Kentucky. Anyway, okay, I gotta go in here, Kroger, and get some groceries. All right, talk to y'all later.